Hello, everyone, and welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with myself, Anne and Tanya. Thank you for joining us on this episode today. So Tanya and myself are both mothers, entrepreneurs, and coaches. We are not diversity experts, but we've created a space through Purple Coach Conversations where we welcome conversations around diversity, equality, and creating a space where people who have something interesting and different to say about diversity and inclusivity are welcome to share their ideas and thoughts with us. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, David Silverston, for being with us. Thanks, David. He's a trustee of a non-profit organization, Save a Child's Heart UK. Save a Child's Heart is an NGO recognized by the EU and the UN, and it specializes in heart diseases in children from developing countries. It's for children all over the world, regardless of race, religion, gender, or nationality, without access to care. So you understand why it was very important for us to have David with us today. And thank you very, very much for being here. And we'd love to leave the stage to you. And when we first met on Zoom, you went through your background and how this beautiful project started. So we'd love to start from there, from 1995.
My pleasure. It all started actually when a doctor in Ethiopia came across two very young children, both girls, who were born with congenital heart disease, or CHD for short. Congenital heart disease is a disease that develops in the fetus. And so the baby is actually born with the disease rather than contracting it after birth. He thought not a problem. There's a population of over 100 million people in Ethiopia. I'll get them to see a pediatric cardiologist. And that's where the problems start, because he found out that there wasn't a single pediatric cardiologist in the whole of Ethiopia. That left him with a problem, because if he didn't treat these children, they would die. There was no two ways about it. And he wasn't prepared to do that. So what he did is he contacted the professor that he studied under in America and said, look, this is a problem. Can you help? And as it happened, the professor could help, because when the professor was serving in the American forces in Korea, he served with a heart specialist called Amir Cohen. And when Amir wasn't actually operating on Americans, he was actually operating on local children that were born with heart disease. He also knew that Amir had actually emigrated from America to Israel and was working from the Warsaw Medical Center in Tel Aviv. Ethiopia and Israel are not a million miles apart. So he put the two doctors in touch with each other. The one doctor sent to Amir the notes and the x-rays. Amir said, I can do something. So together they got enough money to bring the children over. They actually stayed at Amir's house. Amir did the surgeries on them. It was successful, and they went back to Ethiopia. But at that stage, Amir thought, this is ridiculous. How can a country with 100 million people not have a single pediatric cardiologist? And on further examination, Ethiopia wasn't the only one. Pretty well every country in Africa and quite a few in Asia. And would you believe, even some in Eastern Europe, and Romania being a typical example, never had a single pediatric cardiologist. He wasn't prepared to accept that. So what he did was he went to his team, doctors and nurses and clinicians, and said, look, if I can convince the government to give us space in the hospital to do surgeries, would you volunteer your time to carry out surgeries? The team said yes. The government said yes. And that is basically how Save a Child's Heart started. In the first full year, I think we did about 45 surgeries. The current situation is we've done just over 6,000 surgeries on children from 63 countries. Wow. If you'd have asked me to do this interview 2 days ago, it would have been 62. that Guinea has just come on board, and we've just done surgeries on children from Guinea. The whole point of the exercise, though, is that you would think that doing the surgeries is the most important aspect of the work we do. In point of fact, it's not, because if you take into consideration the size of the problem, 1 child in 100 is born with some form of heart condition. Now, not a lot of people know that. And to give you an idea of the size of the problem, last year, according to the Lancet, which is the medical journal, over 250,000 children died from heart disease. It's one of the biggest killers of children in the world. And you have to also consider that in developed countries like our own, we've got the facilities, we've got the surgeons to be able to treat congenital heart disease. In developing countries, they don't. And that's the whole problem. That's the reason why we bring the children to Israel for surgeries. And that 250,000 is pretty well developing countries, because in developed countries, we can actually treat it. And the other thing to take into consideration is the 250,000 figure is probably a vastly underreported figure, because a lot of the countries don't have the facilities to diagnose what the children have died from. So it's not a problem that Save a Child's Heart could actually solve single-handedly. But what we did decide to do was, let's train the doctors from developing countries so that they can go back to their own countries, carry out surgeries there, and at the same time, train other doctors so it permeates out. It's the old adage that if you give a man a fish to eat, he'll eat for a day. If you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life and feed his family. And so that's the concept behind Save a Child's Heart. Yes, we do the surgeries. That has the immediate effect, but the long-term effect, the actual way of solving this problem, is to train up as many doctors and physicians and clinicians as we can. And also another aspect of this, and this is about equalizing up societies and equalizing up countries, is that these countries don't want to be reliant on charity. They want to be independent of charity. And so by us training doctors to be able to go back to their own countries, it gives them the dignity that I think they deserve, that they can now do this independently of outside charity.
And how quickly can they start operating when they get the training usually? How long does it take them to be
to be trained as a pediatric cardiologist? It can take between 3 and 5 years, depending on how much medical sophistication the doctor's already got. If it's starting from scratch, then it's 5 years. If the doctor's already been trained in certain degrees of surgery, then it can be 3 years.
Yeah.
And another aspect of the work that we do is that we send out medical missions to countries where we can actually check on children that we've already done surgeries on. We can check on children that need surgeries and put them on a list. And we can also train doctors whilst we're out there, because we take with us a fully equipped operating theatre. And if the hospital has actually got the standards that we require, which is the standards of cleanliness and hygiene, then we can actually do surgeries in those countries, and at the same time train doctors whilst we're doing it. And this has got another side effect, in as much that there are children that are too ill to travel to Israel for surgeries. They would not make the journey. So by us sending a medical mission to those countries, we can do surgeries on children that are too ill to travel.
Yeah, so I imagine the idea is also, like, let's say, for instance, if a child's in Sudan, he cannot travel all the way up to Israel, that child can go to Ethiopia, because there are some, now, thanks to Save a Child's Heart, there are some pediatric cardiologists there, so they won't necessarily need to go all the way to Israel.
We will go to that country. We won't send them to another country. For example, we've set up we set up what we call centers of excellence, which is where a country can work totally independently now. And Ethiopia is one, Tanzania is another, and Romania is another. But for example, if we've got a child that's from Kenya, for example, and we've got a medical mission going to Kenya, then we will do surgeries there. We've done them in Zanzibar, we've done them in a number of different countries. And there's one other aspect that I haven't mentioned here. Our slogan is mending hearts, building bridges. And the building bridges is a byproduct, but a very important byproduct of the work that we do. You see, half the children that we've done surgeries on are from Gaza, from the West Bank, Palestinian Authority, from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. You all know the politics of the Middle East, and I'm not going to go into it now because we're not a political organization. But the truth of the matter is that you go to our hospitals, you'll see an Israeli child in a bed next to a child from Gaza or Syria or Iraq. It could be any of those countries. And the families are with the children and the families talk to each other. We've got interpreters there and bridges are built, friendships are made, and the barriers come down and people see that at the end of the day, the only thing they've got that they're really interested in is the health of their children. And that's common amongst all the families, whether they're from Gaza, whether they're from Israel, whether they're from Syria or Iraq. So it is building bridges. And in our own way, we like to think that we're bringing a little bit of peace to an area of the world that really needs it. So in a nutshell, that's where it is. There are examples of success stories, which
you have one, I believe.
Yeah, I have one, and if you like, it's a little video. Would you like to see it? And
yes,
we'll share it now. Give me a moment.
Thank you.
I can see that video. Yes, I've seen it with you last time, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Okay.
His name is Hamza Ali Mohammed. He's 2 years old, from the Palestinian city of Ramallah in the West Bank. After months without her, he's finally back in his mother's arms, on his way home. It's been a short ride, but a very long journey. It began in late February when Hamza was brought to Israel for life-saving cardiac surgery by Save a Child's Heart, based at Wolfson Medical Center in Holon. Over the last 25 years, this international humanitarian initiative has saved the lives of almost 5,500 youngsters from developing regions around the world. Hamza's surgery went well, but his recovery was far from routine. He spent weeks in intensive care as doctors and nurses fought to save his life. While he was on life support, his mother had to visit her other children back home in Ramallah.
And it happens to be that the coronavirus hit us all, and the lockdown was imposed on Israel from the Israeli side and in the Palestinian Authority by the initiative of the Palestinian Authority.
Weeks later, when Hamza could finally breathe on his own, his family was still stuck in Ramallah. He awoke surrounded by strangers, but not for long. The entire Israeli medical team stepped in to fill the gap, and they made sure that Hamza never lost sight of his real family.
The void was filled, and this is really amazing story, by all the staff here, the doctors and the nurses, that took him as if he was their own child.
Bye-bye.
Finally, after 2 months, it was time for Hamza to say goodbye. It's only an hour or so from Holon, across the checkpoint to the West Bank. But it's been a very long time since Hamza's mother has held him in her arms. travel restrictions are making Save a Child's Heart's work more challenging than ever, but nothing can stop this life-saving mission. Thanks to continuing support from around the world, long after COVID-19 is gone, one Palestinian child and his family will carry some lasting memories from a special place that's very close to home.
Always a very touching story, actually. One thing I have also left out is that patients are not charged for this. All the costs are covered by Save a Child's Heart.
That's absolutely amazing. I think that story put words into a whole different perspective as well sometimes when you just see something like that that is so powerful. And it's amazing that it's all covered by the charity. So how can people who want to get involved and who want to contribute, how can they get involved in helping the charity, the financial or otherwise?
Well, the easiest way is to go onto our website, which is saveachildsheart.org. There's a donate button there that they can donate, and they can donate from any country around the world. When you press on the donate button, you get the different flags of different countries that you're in. Just click on the flag from the country that you're in. Preferably click on the British one, because that way the money goes to us and we can then send it over to Israel, and it will come from the UK. And they can donate that way. If they want to physically help, we always look for fundraisers and people who got ideas on how to fundraise. For companies that wish to contribute, there's numerous ways that they can do that. They can sponsor the surgery of a child. They can pay for medical equipment. They can even do, as individuals, sponsor a party for the children. We have a children's house, which is about 10 minutes away from the hospital, where the children go pre and post-op. And in fact, we actually invite visitors to come and visit the children. If anybody's on holiday in Israel and wants to visit the Save a Child's Heart Children's House, they can just contact me and I can arrange it. It's the most uplifting place you've ever been to. The moment you walk through the door, you'll find a little kid that's got your hand. They're taking you to the gardens. They want to play with you. They love visitors. And they all show off their scars, because obviously the surgeries they do, a lot of it's open heart surgery, and they all compare scars, who's got the best scars. And and of course, it's a real United Nations of people. At any one stage, you can have 4 or 5 different nationalities there, but they don't need to talk to each other. Sign language is very, very useful, and friendships are built. It really is the most amazing place.
The language of the heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I get very emotional every second time I see this video, and it's very hard as a mama, as any human being, not being emotional, seeing these interaction. And you were saying before we started recording also that, you know, this is a fantastic example of inclusive leadership, obviously from the team and everyone involved. And you were talking about how also the inclusivity was in giving the child a more normal life, as they're not able sometimes to breathe on their own, which was his case, so that he was a bit more able to have a more normal activity as a child of this age. So I would love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. The stories of the children. There's a couple of stories that come to mind, actually. One is a child, his name is Yared Bold, and he was from Ethiopia. And he was an orphan at the age of 6, and he became a street kid. He was literally living off the streets, scavenging for food. Not a penny to his name, obviously, sleeping on the streets. And he collapsed in the street, and he was taken to hospital, and he was diagnosed with a heart condition. By that time, Save a Child's Heart was already established, and so he was sent to Save a Child's Heart for surgeries. Surgery was successful. Today, he opened a school for street kids. And they are, right now, they've got 200 children that he started, that he's the principal of. They're fed, they have a proper food during the day, they're getting an education. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Save a Child's Heart. He would have been dead.
What a brilliant story.
I know,
that you're able to follow. What is beautiful is how it's not, it feels like it's a continuity, not just about giving the child a chance to live, but also, you know, following through and making sure that, you know, you keep in touch with them and you follow their journey, and that are inspiring stories for other families that may feel very scared of sending their children away, and it's just they are kind of the your ambassadors for life.
they are actually, they very much are. It's interesting how many of the children, once we've treated them, we ask them, what do you want to do when you get older? And they all say, the boys also, we want to be doctors, and the girls say we want to be nurses. You know, sorry to divide it like that, but that's the way it comes out. But in point of fact, there's another story, a lady called Miron, also from Ethiopia, as it happens, was diagnosed with a heart disease that she didn't even know she had. And she went to Save a Child's Heart as a teenager. Today, she's 28 years old and a qualified doctor. She actually made it to become a doctor. So Ethiopia is quite a fascinating country, actually. The children there hunger for education. And in point of fact, one of the first children that we ever did surgeries on eventually became a human rights lawyer for the United Nations and is Ethiopian.
Wow.
So, and she was one of the first children that we did surgeries on. So there's an old saying, it's the same as in Islam as it is in Judaism, which is to save a life is to save a world. And you don't know what type of world you're saving when you do these surgeries. But when you see the results of the children that I've just mentioned, you know, one becoming opening the school for street kids and another one becoming a doctor, it's amazing what it could lead to.
It is. It's such a powerful story. We had apologies from Anne. She's had a bit of an internet problem, so we are carrying on without her. We're not just ignoring that she's disappeared, but we knew that this could happen. That's why David and I have remained very professional and continued the interview. But yeah, so we you were also mentioning about, you know, this hospital in Israel and how the team is so diverse as well, that it's not about, obviously we talk about, you spoke about the fact that Save a Child's Heart is not a political organization at all. But how it's also translated in this hospital in Israel. Can you tell me about, you know, the percentage? You said some very interesting numbers about the Israeli population and also the hospital, and I thought that'd be worth sharing with our audience.
Absolutely. I mean, 20% of Israel's population is Muslim, and there's also a Christian population there as well. But the doctors are made up of Jews, Muslims, and Christians. They operate side by side. They're Israelis, and they're not defined. Doctors aren't defined by their religion, you know, they're defined by the, I suppose you call it the Hippocratic Oath. They all want to do the same thing, which is save children's lives. So, you know, you can find a Jewish child being operated on by a Muslim doctor and a Muslim child being operated on by a Jewish doctor. It doesn't make any difference. At the end of the day, they're human beings. And that's what Save a Child's Heart is all about.
Yes, and I guess it shows another side of the coin, because being here in England, in Europe, we have, we see certain images on the news, and we hear certain side of the story, and that's one of the reasons why Anne and myself thought it was so important to listen to your story and Save a Child's Heart, just to show as well other examples that are not necessarily depicted or represented, but it's also that also exist, and you are one of many, I'm sure, that we don't know about.
Absolutely.
And it is our responsibility as a diversity and inclusion a podcast to bring that to the front of the table, so that people can also see, yes, there is that, but there is also, I come from a very privileged background, and I was raised in Monaco, and it's not the same at all, but Monaco has many facets as well. It has a very big social facet for children and adults with mental disabilities, and the government does a lot for them. And whenever I have a conversation about where I come from, the first prejudice will be the one that is in the front line, and the money and the principality and all the flashy side of things. But I do tell them I have a sister with disability, and I don't think it would have been the same if she was born somewhere else, not for the money element, but for the care and how much they include them in the day-to-day life and everything. So I really, truly, fully appreciate how, being an ambassador and showing another side of the coin can also change people's minds. So thank you for being part of Purple Culture Conversation. And I thought before we finish, if there's any project, you were talking about different things that Save the Child's Heart was doing, and that you've had a new country recently that was part of your many countries that you're helping. But if there's any project that you're working on that you'd like to share with the audience.
Absolutely, there's a very important project. In fact, it's the biggest project that Save a Child's Heart has undertaken. In the grounds of the Walsall Medical Centre in Holland, we've just built a dedicated hospital for Save a Child's Heart. It's called the Save a Child's Heart International Paediatric Cardiology Hospital. And it's also sharing a building with Silverston Adams Hospital. Silverston Adams is a very generous benefactor who's paid for this. And when the hospital is fully opened, it will eventually enable us to double the amount of children that we do surgeries on, and also double the number of doctors that we train. Hopefully by the end of this year, certainly by the beginning of next year, it will be fully operational. And if anybody out there wants to get involved, there's plenty of projects, naming projects, equipment projects, things like that we need. Like I say, we everything that Save a Child's Heart does is done due to the generosity of our supporters and benefactors, and we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. So
projects.
Go to our website, have a look and see what we're doing.
Yes, congratulations, honestly, on this achievement, on having a wing dedicated to Save a Child's Heart, a hospital dedicated to it. And I wanted to share with the audience as well. So Kindergift is a website that is a great website that you can use, and you can select a charity for when you organize your child's birthday. You can dedicate a certain amount, so you send that to the guests, and you can dedicate a certain amount that will be distributed to a charity. It can be a child's birthday, or it can be anything else. You can use it for your own birthday, you can use it for any other event. And so if you're looking for a platform where Save a Child's Heart is also represented with other charities, of course, but that's how I got to know Save a Child's Heart, because it really spoke to me. Your charity spoke to me from a history of another charity in France, and as we discussed, and and that's how we got in touch. So I would suggest I'll put the link of Kindergift as well, and I've selected your charity for my twins' birthday. On the
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
December. Hopefully we'll have some generous donations as well. But thank you so much. We'll put the links of the website and how people can connect with you. Is there anything else that I should know aside from the website and Instagram? Anything else that I should include?
No, nothing else. I mean, Save a Child's Heart are also on Facebook. So if you wanted to look at the very latest information that's coming in, the latest countries, the latest children that we're treating, etc., go to our Facebook page. You'll see it all on there.
Yeah, we'll definitely include that for our audience. So thank you again so much, David, for being part of this journey of Purple Coach Conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I just wanted to tell our audience to thank you again also for listening. Make sure you connect and follow Save a Child's Heart, and make sure you check also on our website our previous interviews of Purple Coach Conversations. Thanks again.